I'm just having so much fun reading these stories, and now we're up to December 15th, and the story for today is called The Gift of the Magi. $1.87. That was all. And 60 cents of it was in pennies, saved 1 and 2 at a time. 3 times Della counted it. $1.87, and tomorrow was Christmas. There was nothing to do but flop down on the shabby little couch and sob, so Della did. While the mistress of the house is giving way to this display of emotion, let's take a look at the home. A modest, furnished flat at $8 per week. In the entryway was a letter box into which no letter would fit, and an electric button which would not ring. And beneath it was a card bearing the name Mr. James Dillingham Young. And though the proud possessor of this name boasted a weekly income of but $20 a week, whenever he came home he was called Jim, and greatly hugged by Mrs. James Dillingham Young, already introduced to you as Della, which is all very good. Della finished her cry and attended to her cheeks with a powder rag. She stood by the window and looked out dully at a gray cat walking a fence in a gray backyard. Tomorrow was Christmas Day, and she had only $1.87 with which to buy Jim a present. She had been saving for months, and this was the result. Only $1.87 to buy a gift for Jim. Many a happy hour she had spent planning something nice for him, something fine and rare. And suddenly she whirled from the window and stood before the mirror. Her eyes were shining brilliantly, but her face had lost its color. Rapidly she pulled down her long, full hair. There were 2 possessions of the James Dillingham Youngs in which they both took pride. One was Jim's gold watch, which had been his father's and his grandfather's, and the other was Della's hair. Now Della's hair cascaded down to her knees like a shining brown waterfall. Then she did it up nervously and quickly, faltering only for a minute to wipe away a tear. And on went her old brown jacket and hat, and with a whirl of her skirts and the sparkle still in her eyes, she fluttered out the door and down the street. Where she stopped, the sign read, Madame Sofroni, hair goods of all kinds. And 1 flight up Della ran and collected herself. Madame, large, too white, chilly, hardly looked the Sofroni. Will you buy my hair? Asked Della. Well, take off your hat and let's have a look at it, said Madame. And down rippled the brown cascade. $20, said Madame, lifting the mass with a practiced hand. Give it to me quick, said Della, and the next 2 hours flew by as Della ransacked the stores for Jim's present. She found it at last. It was a gold fob chain, so elegant, so good, it was even worthy of Jim's watch. As soon as she saw it, she knew it must be his. Quietness and value, the description applied to both. $21 at cost. She hurried home with 87 cents. And when Della reached home, her intoxication gave way to reason. She got out her curling irons, and within 40 minutes her head was covered with tiny curls that made her look wonderfully like a truant schoolboy. At 7 o'clock the coffee was brewing and the stove was ready for the pork chops. Jim was never late. Della doubled the precious fob chain in her hand and waited by the door. And when she heard his step, she went white for a moment. "Please, God," she whispered, "make him think I'm still pretty." The door opened, and in stepped Jim. He looked thin and very serious for one so young, and he needed a new overcoat. He stopped inside the door, immovable, his eyes fixed on Della in an expression that she could not read. "Jim, darling," she cried, "don't look at me that way. I had my hair cut off, and I sold it because I couldn't live through Christmas without giving you a present. It'll grow out again. My hair grows awfully fast. Say Merry Christmas and let's be happy. You don't know what a beautiful, nice gift I've got for you." You've cut off your hair?" asked Jim laboriously. "Yes," said Della. "Don't you like me just as well? I'm still me without my hair, aren't I?" "You say your hair is gone," he said, with an air almost of idiocy. "You needn't look for it," said Della. "It's sold and gone. It's Christmas Eve. Be good to me, for it went for you." Out of his trance, Jim seemed quickly to wake. He hugged Della tightly, and then he drew a package from his overcoat pocket and threw it on the table. "Don't make any mistake, Della," he said, "about me. I don't think there's anything that could make me like my girl less. But if you'll unwrap that package, you'll see why you had me going at first." The white fingers tore at the string and paper, and then a scream of joy followed quickly by a flood of tears. For there lay the combs, the set of combs Della had worshipped for so long in a Broadway window, beautiful tortoise-shell combs with jeweled rims, just the shade to wear in the beautiful vanished hair. They were expensive, and her heart had yearned for them without the least hope of possession, and now they were hers. But the tresses they were to have adorned were gone. But she hugged them to her, and at length she was able to look up with a tearful smile and say, "My hair grows so fast, Jim." There's the comb. And then Della leaped up and eagerly held out Jim's fine gift upon her open palm. The dull, precious metal seemed to flash with the reflection of her bright, ardent spirit. "Isn't it dandy, Jim? I hunted all over town for it. You'll have to check the time 100 times a day now. Give me your watch so I can see how it looks." Instead, Jim tumbled onto the couch and smiled. "Della," he said, "let's put our Christmas presents away and keep 'em a while. They're too nice to use just at present. I sold the watch to buy your comb. And now suppose we put those pork chops on." The Magi, as you know, were wonderfully wise men who brought gifts to the babe in the manger. They invented the art of giving presents. Being wise, their gifts were no doubt wise ones. And here I have lamely related the tale of two foolish children who most unwisely sacrificed for each other the greatest treasures of their house. But in a last word to the wise, let it be said that of all who give gifts, these two were the wisest. Of all who give and receive gifts, such as they are the wisest. Everywhere they are the wisest. They are the Magi.